Krista, do you have the first community question for us?
I do.
Okay.
What is an old, reliable muse that is sure to strike inspiration every single time?
A muse, an old, reliable muse, every time sparks inspiration. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've got some medium good answers. Who's got a really good answer?
Is that where you want to start? Is really good.
Yeah,
and
I
then
do.
Backpedal
Let's go
into
down.
medium good.
Start good, go down in quality.
Well, don't look at me then.
Do you know?
My answers are at best medium good.
Okay.
I mean, my old reliablest muse is one we've talked about a bunch because of how old reliable it is just being alone outside. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever been alone outside without starting to have creative ideas, like wandering through a forest or a field or just literally anywhere where like fresh air and nature and wind and stuff is happening. Like it just happens no matter what. I think like a little more subtly, my muse where I find things the most is in my own bad stuff. Like if ever I'm like, I can always get something done if what I do is I just sit down and I do something bad. Like I just do something, do anything. Like if it's writing or working on a game design or doing anything creative.
You mean like something that's not high quality?
Yes.
Like, okay, well, here are my bad ideas.
What kind of bad
like
are we doing?
Yeah, I don't like do a bunch of heroin. I like if I'm trying to work on this creative project and I'm like just searching for my muse, like I just need to do anything. And then when I come back to it later, my reaction to my own bad stuff is where I find my good stuff. Most of my good stuff comes from a reaction to my bad stuff. And like that is always the case. So they're really like, for me, there never really is such a thing as a block because like if I feel blocked, I just do anything knowing that eventually that's going to be the like kindling for my better stuff. And then talking to Dinah, like any time that I,
That's his wife.
That's my wife. Often I will have like the pieces of an idea, but I'm not seeing them connected or I'm not. And so I'll just talk through it with her and she has incredible insights and is incredibly creative herself. And, so in that conversation and that back and forth, like things will start sparking and jump. And then all of a sudden, like I'm dying to run off and like run away with this conversation.
That kind of communication is so helpful with somebody who knows the way that you process information really well. It's such an asset to be able to collaborate with somebody who knows you that intimately.
Yeah, well, and I think she's really good, exactly, at like understanding like here's sort of the grain that Tom gets stuck in all the time. This is Tom's groove, and so she'll say something that'll like pull me out of the groove just enough that it's like, and then I'm off to the races again.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all really reliable.
Okay, who's got something better than Tom?
No, I think that was starting at the top, and now we'll go down from here.
I refuse to be in any competition with Tom.
Okay, deal. What do you have though, Jared?
So for me, genre-specific music is a really a consistent muse, not only because of the inherent emotion magic that is music, that it can set a mood and a vibe so effervescently, but it has to be music that I'm not intimately familiar with. And the playlists have to be large enough and expansive enough that I don't know each song front to back. Because as a musician and as a performer, I've trained my brain to be able to chunk songs into these like easy to conceive of pieces, and so that I can prepare and be ready for that next section to come. And so like once a song comes on that I'm like pretty familiar with, it's like, okay, now that next part is coming, okay, now, and all of those thoughts are distracting me away from the like creative exploration that I'm trying to do.
Your brain moves over onto the music.
Exactly. And the music beyond all of that provides the kind of sound shielding to my brain, because I'm so distractible. Any conversation going on in my vicinity, any sounds, I am immediately drawn to that moment and imagining that space, and I have no choice in the matter. And so the auditory isolation of cool music.
Do you ever listen to just like white noise or pink noise?
Yeah.
Because I also get really distracted. And sometimes I have a Spotify playlist that's just called like Pink Noise Baby Sleep Sounds or something like that. And it's literally just it's like you're next to an airplane engine or something.
I think it's
But-
it's like cosmic waves of concentration or something.
Yeah, it lets me really.
I have never
everything
heard
off.
the term pink noise.
It's
Me
like
neither.
white noise, but less abrasive. So like white noise has this really like intense high end. Yeah, but pink noise is more of a just like hum, like an in utero hum, as opposed to like
Utero.
So calming.
it's very soothing.
I would say for me, it's interesting. I don't feel like I have a muse. What I feel like is there's this process for me of like if I can turn off my critical thinking for just a little while, and settle into not thinking very much, it gives me the space to let my mind work in a way that lets inspiration come. So for instance, when I drive, I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast, right? Or if I'm folding laundry, I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast. And when I'm doing something with my body, driving or doing chores, and I'm listening to something that's long form, it lets me turn off that problem solving piece of my brain and just lets me intake. And just that process of unplugging from that type of thinking lets new ideas cook in the back and be brought to the front when it's time for me to actually solve a problem. So I don't know, that doesn't feel like the best answer. It doesn't really feel like a muse, but just the process of getting my critical thinking to turn off for a little while gives me the space I usually need to solve a problem.
What's interesting is that it feels like we're all sort of identifying like our own unique, the thing that we do to like let our mind be free.
Yeah.
You know, and for each of us is slightly different. You know, his mind is different than yours, is different than mine. And so we all need to sort of like undistract ourselves or distract ourselves just enough, or like manage our mind's instincts to put it in a place where it's allowed to roam free.
Yes. Krista, are you different than that? What do you have a specific muse? What does that look like for you?
Well, when I first heard that question, the first thing that came into my mind was the ocean. And then I thought, why is that? And I think it's something that is so vast, and you can look out at it and it is just all encompassing. It is massive. You can see the light on it. It has all these different conditions. But then if you look up close, like you look at all the creatures in a tide pool and you look at all these, you can just explore infinitely the tiny and the vast in it. And that is just so inspiring.
It's interesting at every scale.
Exactly.
So cool.
Exactly. So you can lose yourself in it as a small thing, and you can lose yourself in the details. And while the ocean, I think, has a special place, I find that to be the case for a lot of things that really inspire me, like environments, like being in a forest. It's the same thing. You can see the perspective of the trees above you. You can feel it kind of enveloping you. But then also you can look at how the tiniest form of how a leaf or a part of a plant or anything is forming, and just get this wealth of ideas.
That's beautiful.
Do you find that experience for you is similar to what we were all just sort of identifying, that like when you're doing that something in your mind becomes free? Or do you find that like for you it's more about like really like taking in the details?
I would say it's some of both. Like, it is a similar thing. It's like when I am in this place and I have all these jumping off points, it sparks other things. Like, I'm not sitting in a void or a vacuum and trying to think of something out of nowhere. It's like, oh, there's already all of this inspiration here, and then it just kind of automatically launches me into adding on to that.
I love the dimensionality of having something be so awe-striking at so many focal points. And I think that is true for both the ocean and the forest. And what's funny too to me about both those things is the element of the white or pink noise that's involved with those environments too. It's like in every sense we're trying to focus our minds or unfocus our minds. We're really trying to not let our thoughts be in control. That's what it seems like to me. There's sounds, there's things to look at that makes it so that our thoughts aren't running wild, because if those thoughts are running wild, then there's no muse that's possible, I don't think, to come through and make an impact on us.
Yeah, I think there's probably times when we need our thoughts to run wild and other times that we don't, or we need them to run wild on in the right way.
And I think it's natural for people who live right now with the amount of input that we have and the amount of caffeine that we have and the amount of adrenaline and cortisol that we have in our systems, that naturally we're running our thoughts are running away with us. So we need this rebalancing in order to make space for a muse and for inspiration to come.
Yeah, they're running wild on the wrong things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like commonly a lot of people use their different social medias and media feeds as like a selective way of cognitive balancing. Like, oh, I'm interested in like making aesthetic judgments and looking at things that are pretty, and so I'm going to go on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. And that you're like that people who are not engaging with that cognition in a creative way, but are still, you know, manifesting their own like mind spaces through the type of stuff that they're choosing to bring in.
I think sometimes social media like that is like its own type of white noise. However, it's a white noise that doesn't actually let your mind relax because there's still so much stimulus that's being taken in. Interesting. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, we're pretty musy.